Hi everybody, we're ready to start. So this webinar today is when we're going to discuss about Cloudsfer. It's a cloud-to-cloud migration service. We're going to dwell particularly on multi-user migration service that we provide in Cloudsfer. It's been on high demand here, and we see a lot of customers that engage us in queries about future data migration and asking for specifically those kind of scenarios. And this is exactly why we conducted this webinar today, to show you a little bit about the feature, about Cloudsfer, and actually continue to do a quick demonstration, and hopefully we'll have some Q&A during the webinar itself. Okay. So a little bit about the company. The company is called Tsunami. Tsunami is a leading provider of data migration solution. We have years of experience with content migration. We distribute two products. One is called Deployer. It's from ECM to Sharepoint migration. It's an enterprise migration solution. And in 2014, we launched another service for cloud-to-cloud migration called Cloudsfer. It's a very easy name to use. And we provided initially migrations for specific simple users to migrate or copy their data over between two cloud storage providers. And we started noticing that there are small companies and enterprises that now, instead of doing one migration of a specific user, they need to do migration of hundreds of users and thousands of users. And that's when we start thinking about creating a multi-user migration, which will allow us to do this in a few quick steps. We have a wide variety of clients throughout the years and experience, and from the segments of aviation, financial, government, pharmaceutical companies, all using both Cloudsfer and Tsunami Deployer. And so let's go to the next one. You can see here in Cloudsfer actually all the systems that we support. Cloudsfer was designed to be a system that allows, regarding the source or target system, we can do any kind of combination or any migration scenario within our services in a few quick steps, and it's one of the easier services to use. So as I mentioned, it's a very simple to use, robust solution addressing all data migration needs for either personal customers that need even to back up their Google Photos or do migration from their personal Dropbox accounts, for example, small, medium businesses and enterprises. We're talking about large scale of terabytes of data per migration project as a minimum. And Cloudsfer, as I mentioned, launched in 2014. It evolved from years of experience of being a leading migration solution to Sharepoint and using our Deployer tool. A little bit about the migration process. Again, we're going to show you a demonstration. We're going to get hands-on on the Cloudsfer application itself. But in order to do a multi-user migration, you need to have the source and target system. Of course, if you reached us, those are the systems that you are looking to migrate. You provide the logging methods, which would be the administrator credentials of both systems. We apply the filters, and decide how we would like to manage the file versioning during the migration and the permission, and then we just kick off everything and start the migration project. It's just as simple as that. Regarding Cloudsfer, it's actually designed to seamlessly migrate data between two cloud storage providers, whether again, it's for a simple migration or a multi-user migration. It's a cloud-based solution with high-end graphical user interface, and that makes the migration very easy to use. Because we are cloud-based, an administrator can actually launch a migration of hundreds of users or thousands of users, and we don't require any hardware, any bandwidth, and from the local environment. You can just close the computer, you can go home and get back to it next week and see how the migration has progressed from the Cloudsfer account. And again, because we're cloud-based, you can access it via mobile or from your iPad and monitor the migration progress from anywhere. We're responsible for large-scale migration, both on the private and the business users, with more than petabytes of data migrated. Petabyte is just for specific customers. But because everything resides in the cloud, we're scalable and flexible to any number of users. So if we have a company that needs to migrate 20 users in parallel or 100 users in parallel, we just add the computing power in our cloud-based solution, and we just provide the necessary resources to perform the migration process. And again, no installation is needed. This is in reference to cloud migration. In the past webinar, I also discussed the on-premise to cloud migration solution from file system, for example, into any other cloud storage provider. And so this does require an installation. Another thing here is too many users to handle, not a problem. We typically encounter many educational institutions that approach Cloudsfer for multi-user migration. And we are actually being queried because they try a lot of services when they evaluate. And when they come to Cloudsfer and other competitors, they usually have, let's say, 50,000 users that are being managed on the Box domain, for example. So when the IT administrator or the admin tries to open and do migration from Box of one specific user, we're dealing with tens of thousands of users. We need to load everything, and usually the user interface breaks down because we wait too long, and the request, gets thrown out, and so they cannot perform the migration. And even if they manage to load all the users, searching for an individual user out of tens of thousands of users, that could be a very tedious job. So the multi-user migration actually eliminates that by providing the spreadsheet of the users that need to be migrated. We don't have to load anything before it. We just create the migration and run everything. A little bit on the features which are supported by Cloudsfer. So if we're talking about multi-user migration or any regular migration, we support the permission. We transfer a copy over the permission of the user, ACL, and the groups. Again, if the users have different email addresses when you do the migration process, we have the option to provide a custom Excel mapping for all the users, and we can provide domain mapping. We have the option to suppress invitations and messages sent to the customers. That usually is the ideal scenario for a company that does the switch to a new target system, let's say Egnyte, for example, and they don't want the users to receive any notification to collaborate and invite new external collaborators. So that's a good way to map out all the external collaborators during the migration. Metadata, we also support maintaining the timestamp of the creation modification from each source system accordingly into the target system. We've had experience with customers that needed to do migration from one system to another. It was very important for them to maintain a specific field of metadata during the migration process. Again, this is something that our dev team can add. We can have a look at it and support it in Cloudsfer if there is any special request. We also have the filtering option, so you can choose to filter items according to the migration process. I gotta be honest with you, most of the users just want to migrate everything as is from the source system to the target system, copy everything, but some customers have other requirements. They want to migrate data which is more current. Let's say data that was modified in the last 3 years. Something older than that can remain in the source system during the migration process. That's a good way of conserving the costs and actually reducing it before the migration process. We also have options to decide what happened if you already performed the migration process. We have the option to skip existing files or overwrite existing files in the target as a new version. And this is something which is also supported in the multi-user migration service. We also have the option to maintain the versions. We have an option to migrate only the latest version into the target system. We have an option to migrate all the version or a specific amount of version into the target system. Again, I must note here that if someone is migrating version, that's going to affect the amount of data which needs to be migrated over into the target system. So if you are concerned on the pricing of the solution of the multi-user migration, and you don't want to consume too much data during the migration process, so you should really take into consideration how would you like to manage the versions. Other features are custom tools that we use actually for automatic creation of migration plan. We have customers that want to do a specific migration or a specific scenario and logic, and our dev team actually gets a spreadsheet and we can create the migration plans automatically. And this is an entire life cycle that we create the migration plan, we analyze them for the customer, present the reports, we run the migration, and after that we do the deltas and again provide the end reports and end results to the customer. We also have the admin tools to manage multiple accounts. If there is an admin account in Cloudsfer and you want to have a sub-Cloudsfer account that will perform specific migration plan, you can monitor the entire progress and activity of all of those Cloudsfer accounts. We have the option of a scheduled backup, for example, a daily migration to transfer all the recent changes from the source into the target cloud storage, and this is very popular feature that we have in Cloudsfer. Again, I mentioned that Cloudsfer is very flexible and scalable because we are operating as a cloud-hosted environment, cloud-hosted service. So if a customer needs to have a dedicated server, he wants to make sure that there is no clash with other Cloudsfer users, or the dedicated server needs to be deployed in other environments, let's say on the East Coast instead of the West Coast, and because they don't want the data to travel far from the original location, that is something that we also provide. We have the option for an analysis to get just the general figures before during the migration, how many files, how many folders, how much data is going to be during the migration process. If someone wants to do a migration of a subfolder and doesn't know how much data he needs to purchase or use in Cloudsfer, we can provide it via analysis. A little bit about best practices. And first of all, as I mentioned, we need to perform an analysis to analyze the project. We need to acquire more knowledge before migrating. And for example, if someone, an IT admin or an administrator are migrating into Sharepoint Online or OneDrive for Business, so there is the known limitation of maximum path length. So it's currently set to 400 characters. Anything above 400 characters will not get migrated into Sharepoint. We have a specific feature in Cloudsfer that actually counts everything and show you problematic areas before you do the migration into SharePoint. You can map the problematic names and actually make sure that everything is within limits of the 400 character imposed by Microsoft. In order to do a multi-user migration, you need to prepare a CSV file of both columns, the source user from the source system and the target user from the target system, and which we'll do during the migration. You'll be able to see in just a few slides. I can do a demonstration. You can manage everything with your admin account performing the migration. The administrator performs everything on behalf of the users. They don't need to insert the password. They don't need to consent to anything. Just by you having the administrator credentials, you can do everything on behalf of the user. So it's a very quick process to perform the migration. You can schedule the multi-user migration to a time which is most convenient for you. For example, you can run the multi-user migration at an off hour, let's say during the weekend or holidays where not a lot of work is being committed on the source system, and migrate it over during the weekend, get back to work on Monday, and see how everything progressed. Again, in Cloudsfer, we do not take the approach of preventing users from committing any changes to the source system. So during the migration process, we encourage the users to commit changes, create and modify items, folders, names, everything. And after the initial migration, we just do delta migration at a press of a button that actually allows us to migrate over the residual data that changed since the initial migration to make sure that you get the latest snapshots in the target system. So that actually ensures that you can do a delta migration and then decide as an administrator to say, hey, everybody, this is the day that we made the final cut, the final migration. You can now start using your target systems. You can change the setting for each and every user during the migration, as I mentioned, advanced options, filters, permission, version management, and you can check the reports for each and every step of the migration. Another important thing which is not mentioned here is that we have support team and dev team, so if you encounter any question or you see anything that doesn't make logic in your eyes, so you can contact us and we would be more than happy to provide you with the necessary assistance. So That's for the presentation. Now we're going to go and actually do a deep dive, go into Cloudsfer application. I'm going to show you how easy it is to use the multi-user migration. I actually prepared 3 scenarios. One is from OneDrive into Egnyte, Dropbox into Sharepoint Online, and another multi-user migration from Box into Google Drive. So let's go ahead, close it. You can see that this is the main page of Cloudsfer websites. All you need to do in order to create a migration, because we're a cloud-hosted solution, is to actually create a Cloudsfer account, have the credits and the seats to perform the migration, and then you can sign into your Cloudsfer account. So I'm going to sign in with my test account. And this is the main view of our application. You can see that we have 3 migration wizards. We have the personalized migration to create one-to-one migration process. We have the multi-user migration, which you're going to see soon. And we also have the on-premise to cloud migration solution that allows to migrate data from file system and legacy ECM systems into any cloud storage provider. So let me just show you how to create a personalized migration. Again, it's a one-to-one migration process. So you can see here all the source systems that are provided by Cloudsfer. One of them is Google Photos, which is very popular at the moment. We also have the business systems. So as a source, I'm going to select Google Drive. I'm going to insert my administrator credentials and approve the connection to Cloudsfer. I have the option here to perform a migration of the users or the team drive. So I want to migrate a user. For example, I have the user called user B. I'm going to migrate the user over into the new destination. As a target, I'm going to select, let's go with Box. Again, I'm going to insert my credentials, grant access to Cloudsfer application, and now I need to migrate into a specific user. So I'm migrating user B into the user QA. I'm pressing save and continue. We have the optional settings. We have the advanced option, as I mentioned, to handle file and folder conflict. If you already performed the migration, you can choose to skip existing files or overwrite existing files in new version. You can apply filters to the migration according to the file size, file type, and the creation modification date of the source system. You can apply migration of the security or permissions. You can see here all the permission levels that you have on Google Drive. So for example, if a certain user or group has the can view permission in the source system, we will migrate it over as a viewer in the destination. So you can actually go ahead and create, let's call it a dictionary of the permission levels and how would you like to migrate everything over. You have the option to send notifications to the user or not to send. As I mentioned, notification, if you choose to not send them, it will actually be beneficial to some customers that don't want the external collaborators to be migrated over into the destination system. We also have a very small section here, which is very important for the migration, for user mapping. So if the users in the source and in the target system have the exact same email address, you don't have to do anything. If the users have different domain, you can insert the old domain and the new domain, and we will convert the user emails as we go during the migration. Or you can provide a spreadsheet mapping of tens of thousands of users for the migration process. And this is also a good scenario for source users that are actually, let's say, someone is no longer working in the company, or they don't need that account. You can migrate that specific account into the new employee in the company, which is taking over and needs to have access to the data. We also have the 4th tab here for the versions. We have the option to maintain only the latest version during the migration. You can maintain all the versions, or let's say, for example, the last 5 versions. Again, I must stress here that if you're migrating versions, it's going to affect the amount of data that is going to be migrated over. I'm going to press here to skip. So that's a simple migration in Cloudsfer. You choose the source system, you choose the target system, you apply the optional settings of the permissions, versions, filters, and advanced options. You have the option to analyze the migration. You can save it for later. You can schedule the migration as a one-time schedule or do a scheduled backup on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and actually launch the migration. So I'm going to save the migration plan for later. And that's the workflow of migrating one user. But what happens if an administrator needs to migrate 300 accounts or 1,000 accounts or even more? It's going to be very time consuming, and usually there are a lot of errors along the way. So that is why we created the multi-user migration service. And we're going to start a new multi-user migration right now. So we're going to start with the first combination. It's going to be from Sharepoint Online. It's both a SharePoint site and OneDrive for business accounts. And as a target, I'm going to select Egnyte. Here, I need to upload a spreadsheet. So let me just show you a spreadsheet we created in advance. You can see it's a very basic, easy to fill spreadsheet. We have two columns. One column is for the source user or the OneDrive for business account, which I have in my Tsunami domain. And in the target, we have the 4 Egnyte accounts that are going to be migrated into. So for example, we are migrating the user, the OneDrive user account, maya@tsunami.com. We're migrating everything over into the Egnyte user called QA, just for an example. I'm going to close this and add the spreadsheet. And press here to continue. In here, we will need to provide the admin credentials. So as a source, I'm going to connect with my admin credentials to SharePoint. It's Office 365, so it's also a OneDrive for Business. I'm going to connect here with my admin account for Egnyte. And grant access. And press the continue button. Here again, as you saw in the first migration, we have the option to provide advanced options, filters, security or permission migration, and version, how you would like to handle the versions. So I'm going to press here to skip. And that's the multi-user migration. So I just need to click here to save. And right now, at the back end, we start creating the migration plans automatically for each and every user. So we can see here on the main page, we have a new multi-user migration created 2 minutes ago from SharePoint or OneDrive into Egnyte. I'm going to press the title here. Now you can see that all 4 users which were provided in the spreadsheets for the migration are now mapped and ready to be migrated over. You can see, for example, the example that we provided that the Maya's account is going to be migrated over into QA. So everything is mapped. The green icon here states because you have the administrator account, you don't have to insert the user passwords. They don't have to do anything. You do the migration on the behalf of the organization. So I'm going to get back to the main page. And now all that we have left is actually to run the multi-user migration. So I'm going to start it in one shot. Again, hundreds of users. You can execute at the press of a button. We also have the option to perform a delta here at the press of a button after the initial migration. And you can monitor the entire activity of your multi-user migration on the left side panel on the activity page. You will be able to see that the 4 migration plans from SharePoint or OneDrive into Egnyte are currently running. So for example, you can see in that specific migration, which we discussed, it's Maya's account into QA Cloudsfer tests. You can see how many folders were migrated, how many items were transferred during the migration process, what is the total amount of data uploaded during the migration process itself. You will be also able to download a detailed report. You can see that we already started creating folders in the target system. So you can download the report and actually get a detailed report of the migration per each user. So you can see, for example, that we have actions for creating folders. You have the source item, target path, if it was successful. If something wasn't successful during the migration process, you will get a fail here with a description. And then either if it's something which is handled by Cloudsfer, provide the detailed description, or it's something that our support team and dev team can help you verify. So now while the migration is running, again, as I mentioned, Cloudsfer is a solution that allows you to do migration from any cloud to any cloud in just a few quick clicks. So I'm going to show a few more examples. For example, let's do another multi-user migration, but right now let's migrate from Dropbox into Sharepoint Online. Again, I need to upload a spreadsheet. So there is a spreadsheet of 3 users I created in advance. I'm going to upload the spreadsheet, press continue, and I'm going to insert here again my admin credentials in Dropbox and my admin credentials in Office 365. Press continue. We also have the options for each migration, but you can see that because we are migrating from Dropbox, for example, so the permission levels are a bit different. It's the same process according to the source and the target system. I'm going to press here to skip, and that's how you create a multi-user migration, hundreds of users from Dropbox into SharePoint Online. Let's do another one, a final multi-user migration, just for the heck of it. And now we're going to select 2 other systems. We will do it from Box into Google Drive. We provide the administrator credentials and the spreadsheets. Again, let me connect to the admin account in Box. And again, connect with my admin credentials into Google Drive. Press continue. Again, it's the same options. You can see here that because Box has a lot of permission levels, it's a bit different here, but it's the same process. I'm going to advance here and save the multi-user migration. The multi-user migration pricing is determined according to the amount of volume you need to transfer. For example, 1 terabyte of data or 4.3 terabytes of data, what I have now in my test account, and according to the amount of users or seats that need to be migrated over into the target system. It's a one-time payment. You perform the migration, you just purchase the license itself for the data and seats to perform the multi-user migration, and you have access to all the features, and it's not bound by time, by any other means. So once you purchase it, you have it. It doesn't go away. So that's for the multi-user migration. You can see actually, for example, the migration from Dropbox into OneDrive or SharePoint Online. We also have the users created and ready to be migrated. Again, it's a list of 3 users, but it can be used up to 1,000 users in one multi-user migration. And you can create as many multi-user migrations as you want. So that's it for our demonstration today. And we showed you about Cloudsfer. We discussed a bit about Tsunami, the company, the solution that we provide, scenarios of multi-user migration. We showed you a single migration in Cloudsfer to show you the logic of why we created that specific tool. Okay, guys, so thank you very much. If you would like to evaluate the multi-user migration, you want to do a simple migration and evaluate it, you want to do an on-premise to cloud evaluation, you can just reach our support team at support@cloudsfer.com. They would be more than happy to provide you with the necessary data and a couple of seats to perform a multi-user migration, to really try and play with it, see how easy and simple it is to use. And if you are a customer that actually came through the webinar, you can actually come here and there is a specific promotional discount or offering by the end of the year for anyone who attended the webinar. So I hope you guys and girls found this useful, the multi-user migration process. This is going to be uploaded also into all our media channels and YouTube. So if someone still wants to see it, it's going to be available there. And again, any questions, feel free to reach us, feel free to contact us. We would be more than happy to assist you with your future migration. Thank you.